Okay, again, this is doing a lunchtime presentation. Normally, like I say, they're informal. This is why we're doing it. Normally, I don't have a TV here, but I'm doing it here so that we can actually see what I'm talking about and easier than trying to look across the table on my computer screen. All right, so what I'm talking about today is that actually, we talk a lot about history, different types of people coming to talk about different periods of history or whether ways of looking at history. Next week will be Jorge who's going to talk about using art in history. But I want to talk to you all about this because I've been through this process of applying for jobs. Okay, and so I'm specifically going to talk about how you apply for jobs at federal jobs. All right, almost all federal, I think just about all federal jobs, you have to go through USA Jobs. All right. And there's a lot of, and the reason I bring it up, there's a lot of museum institutions out there that are, that's where you go to. This is the website. This www.usajobs.gov, G-O-V. All right. And so with this here, when you go in there and you apply, you have to build an account first. Okay. And I'll get the search terms in a minute. Again, though, like I say, this is pretty informal today. All right, and when you open up the page, this is what it looks like, okay? And you'll see right here, there's your keywords. So you search by keywords, or you search location. If I just want to put South Carolina, I'll pull up all the federal jobs in South Carolina. Or I can put both in, historian, museums, archivists, and if it's South Carolina, you can put a town in. And it's also these jobs, there's overseas jobs too. So if you're interested in looking for a job in Europe, you're looking for a job in South America, Asia, what have you, they're there. And I'll show you here in a second here, but this is the opening page you'll see right here, but you'll have to build an account. And there's this huge notice on here, it just came up. It says resumes limited at 2 pages, okay? Be careful of that, watch it, caution, be cautioned because when you fill in the information, you're all used to resumes being 2 pages. This USA Jobs for federal workers, it was unlimited. And so we just dumped everything we ever did into there of our whole life. And it could be 14, 15, 20 pages, which in the standard world is 2 pages. Okay. And this thing here it operates by keyword search normally. Okay, and I'll talk about that. That's really important. I want y'all to pay attention to that. It isn't so you don't want to go on there and be all flowery and stuff like that, and I'll explain to you why. And the reason is I really want to tell you this and explain that process to you is because when I applied for federal jobs, when I was trying to get into the museum, the Smithsonian and several museums like that, I applied 69 times. Okay, and I didn't even get picked up. I didn't even get because if you make the cut, it'll give you notice, hey, you've made the cut. And I never made the cut. And my friends are like, oh no, you got to copy verbatim what they say. And for us as historians, anybody's academics in the academic world, what's the first thing you don't do when you write something? You don't plagiarize. Okay? We are taught ingrained you don't plagiarize. On this, you plagiarize like crazy. Okay? Because it's a computer. They're putting the job description in there, and that computer's only going to go out and look and match up what aligns with what you put in there. And so that's a problem there. I mean, it's a problem there. It makes it also difficult for us to really get too detailed, but these are things, so plagiarize the heck out. Once I plagiarized, I got acknowledged I made the cut for every job that I applied for immediately. And so that was a big turning point for me. And not only did I make the cut, I was at the top of the cut every time because I had all the stuff there. But I went down, and I'll show you here in a minute. Let me get the one here. Okay, this one is a historian job, and it's actually in Incirlik, Turkey. Anybody wants to go to Turkey? You can apply for it. And most of these jobs, let me go into it real quick here. So here's one right here. And you go into, and it'll tell you all the qualifications. Most of the qualifications, most of these jobs are just a bachelor's degree. Okay. What? You got a question?
You said it was in Turkey?
It's in Turkey, yeah. It's a military base there. Most military bases have a base historian. And so you go there and you be a one deep job, and your job is just to track and document the history of the base.
So that would be like just going there on a work visa.
What's that? Yeah, you go there and you go there on military orders as a civilian contract worker or civilian worker, a GS employee, which is a good way to get your feet in there. And so the job let me go down to it. It tells the duties here. You'll conduct research and write wing history. Wing is an Air Force term for the base history. And serves as authoritative advisor, responds to queries, and conducts outreach. This is when people email you information and, hey, I'd like to know the history of this organization or this person. And you'll create special presentations. And then here's your conditions of employment. Make sure y'all see that. And so citizenship required. This is a 12-month unaccompanied restricted tour. There's some, and that's the other thing you got to pay attention to. For some of you all got families. Unaccompanied, when they say in these assignments for overseas, means you can't bring families. Turkey's a very, now, most bases are not that. Most bases are accompanied, okay? But if it says unaccompanied for you that may have kids or family later, there are a few restricted areas. Korea is going to be one. Turkey's going to be one. There's not that many. Most of them even bring families, all right? And so, again, things you have to do. The 12, like say 12 month, and usually on 12 months you can re-up after that. I want to stay longer. And so, and you go through here, and then there's also going to be a physical requirement. This one here is something to look out for, and it's something that definitely applies to me. It says this position is emergency essential, okay? EE. This says EE, and these are for the ones that are attached to military bases. That these here you may have to deploy. So you, when the unit goes to, or we need you to go to Iraq for 4 months, or to wherever for 4 months, you go, and you'll be there documenting the history of that unit in the field. Okay, and so most of these positions that I'm talking about, just be aware, or just gonna be regular, straight up government position, working for the Smithsonian, working for the National Archives, working for something like that. But there are these type of positions out there. If you want to travel, hey, I'd like to go to Italy. There's bases in Italy. There's bases in Germany. I want to go live in Europe for 3 years, and you can be the base historian there. Okay. If y'all got questions anywhere, stick your hands up. All right. This is definitely kind of information heavy here, but I want you to ask away. But I want you to be aware of this out there. And if you want to apply for these jobs out there, and I'm not directing y'all toward the military, I just want you to know that these oddballs are out there too. And if you see them and the terms like EE, I wanted to point that out. Now, some of them may have especially they're in EE position where you're deployable position, you will go through some of the basic trainings of that where, oh, well, the base has now got to wear chemical gear. Guess what you've got to do? You've got to wear chemical gear. It may have a physical requirement. Okay, you can't have a disability, or you got to be able to do this or X, Y, and Z. So most of them are not going to require you to go out and do PT and do all the physical fitness stuff. But you cannot, for some of these here, you cannot have disabilities here. But most of them are like, I can't lift the weight, I can't do this. You know, basically, if you can get up, walk, climb stairs, do your job, you're more than likely going to qualify. Okay, but just so you know, those positions are out there. Now, for anybody got any questions on that? Okay. Now, getting to the regular normal, which you'll see. Here's one here, Museum Specialist, Department of Navy. This, again, they have a special historian out there. Again, this one here, let me see if I'm getting off the ball. Okay, so like Barksdale, another base historian. The historian you saw there. But then you get down here, Department of Navy, I'm trying to see here. Okay, General Museum Specialist here. This is with the Smithsonian here. And so, matter of fact, the next two are. And so those are museum specialist jobs there. And they a lot of times do not have, they start out, this is what the pay is, a GS9, so that's the pay. Pay attention to those there. Because with a bachelor's degree, that's about where you'd go into, about a GS9, maybe a GS11, GS7 in that range there. Most of the time, the GS levels go odd numbers. Okay, they may have an even number, but you normally don't see that. Just sometimes if they want to break it down even farther. So it usually goes 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, and then it'll go to, they're usually throwing a 12. After 11, then it breaks down 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 is the top. Okay, and so, and a 15 is like the CEO of a company. Usually the person who runs each museum, Smithsonian Museum, is a GS15 or 14. Okay, so give you an idea about where they're at. But for an entry level with a bachelor's degree, usually a GS9. So that's about what the pay is there. And so when you go into those jobs, again, you'll see this job says open on another announcement there. This one here is with the NMAAC, which is National Museum of African American History and Culture. Okay, and so that's what that one's with there. And it'll go in here and it starts talking about the conditions of employment there. Again, you'll see this sometimes, again, like a physical requirement here. Occasionally strenuous, types are large and heavy up to 50 pounds. So that's something you may have to, if you have a serious disability, you can't lift 50 pounds, that may be something that maybe you may not apply for. I would apply anyway, because if you saw the Smithsonian, most of the people are so elderly, no one is really ever holding up to those physical requirements most of the time. But basic qualifications here, and so the experience they want there, and they'll go in here and talk about the experience. Education, 2 full academic years, progressively higher level of graduate education or master's equivalent degree related to the position. So they're looking for something for a master's, but a lot of bachelors will qualify, because a lot of those, instead it says education, it'll quite commonly say 18 credit hours in history, okay, which most people with a bachelor's degree has already there. All right. And so in most jobs, they usually don't say toward the master, they'll usually say the 18 credit hours. Okay. And so again, resumes no more than 2 pages here. All right. Now, when it talks about education experience, for you guys, this is really important here, right here. All right. So they'll talk about the full explanation here, but the things that actually do count: volunteering, internships, that counts as experience. A lot of times, especially for you younger people, and you're all starting out, all of you guys, you're like, I don't have experience. No, all this stuff counts. This internship, by the time you leave here, you will have 2.5 months, 3 months of experience. You can use that on a resume, 3 months experience. Start counting that up, start documenting that time, okay? The other thing too, I would encourage you to do is that once you're done here, find a small museum and volunteer at it. Okay, if you go in once a weekend or once, twice a month for the next couple of years, those are years of experience here. Okay, I started out and I got my job from the Smithsonian. I started out at a small museum and I volunteered there. Now they're volunteering for 4 months. I liked the work I did. I say, hey, we'd like to hire you. I worked there for about 15 months. And the next thing I know, I met some people from the Smithsonian and they encouraged me to apply and I got a job. But I started out volunteering. Okay, the other thing too, if you volunteer somewhere, a museum, try to see if they'll give you, if you're working with archival collections, see if they'll give you a title. Hey, do you mind if I have a title? Create it for yourself, okay? Because this way you can say, I got 3 months experience, 4 months, 2 years experience as an archives assistant. Or if I'm the only guy who's managing their collections, doing what they're doing, collections manager, okay? A volunteer collections manager. It's a title. Those are official titles out there. Look on these USA Jobs. What do they call those titles out there? And what type of volunteer work are you doing that is similar to that? And see if most of the places where you're at say, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. They're like, sure, man, call yourself whatever you want and we'll sign off on it. Okay, honestly. And so do that. And I encourage you to do that. This is stuff that will set you up. This is things I did that got me to a very good job with the Smithsonian. I was at for 10 years. I loved it. All right, going here to expanded additional information. And so there's other information that maybe apply. Go through all this information because there is a lot of these here that will turn around and they will, I don't qualify. There may be something on there. Again, how you, this one here, how you'll be evaluated. And everybody can see that. Okay, good. It says ability to catalog a museum collection. You're doing that right now. That's what we're doing right now, cataloging here. Ability to create and enhance a digital collection and constituent records in the museum system, TMS. Okay, right now we don't have the time, but we also have Past Perfect, which is a similar management system. You're going to be putting those records in there. We're scanning documents. This is what they're talking about, digital collections here. All right, this is not that hard to get a volunteer at a museum, say, hey, let me do this here and get experience in that. And this way you put on a resume. Yes, I know how to do that. Okay? You don't even have to sometimes, yeah, they might have told me I know how to do it well. I might only been there for a few weeks. Maybe I won't put the time on there, but I'd say I know how to do that skill. Okay? And again, ability to communicate orally, which most people do, communicate writing, yes. This other one here is knowledge of African American history and culture. If you have that, if you've taken classes in that, all those things apply right there. If you've taken classes that are focused on Civil War construction, that it talks about slavery, you have that Southern history. Those are different type of things that you can apply for. And so again, it talks about your required documents, what you got. There's a lot of required documents that once you get hired that you'll have to apply for. And so again, go down there, how to apply. And so this one right here, I'm trying to see if they got a description of the job, next steps, because they usually have a very detailed, unless I went past it, or they don't have it, job duty positions, regarding documents, how you be evaluated, additional information, education. Give me 1 second here. This one is a new job. It popped up there. And I'll what's that?
There's a duties tab at the top.
A what at the top?
A duties tab to that strip of.
Right next to this job is open too.
I'm sorry, this one here? Or which one?
Underneath.
Oh, God. I'm trying to see. Oh, my goodness. Okay. So, all right. No, this has been changed as I've done it. Usually it's written in the body here. Okay. So let me go to duties here. Thank you all. Okay. The duties. All right. This is what I really want to get to, this word for word, verbatim type of stuff here. So when you put in there and you write on there, you're going to write all flowery. Hey, for this, I've done this here and I've helped catalog this here. I don't want you to do that. I want you want to get picked up. You put in there 6 months experience cataloging a wide range of if it's true. I don't want you to lie on it, but keep the wording intact. You may have to change some of the tense on it and stuff like that, but do not get all flowery and let me go off script. Stick to the script, okay? Because it's keyword searched. And so you don't know what keywords are looking for. For them, it could be cataloging, right? Or it could be artifacts, digital. It could be all that. So make sure you stick to that. Make sense for everybody? Okay.
Been doing that. Were we not supposed to do that?
What's that? A lot of people don't do that. A lot of people don't do that. They feel like, oh man, I'm plagiarizing, or maybe I'm supposed to, you know what I mean? And so I've been there. And so work independently. 6 years working independently, blah, blah, blah. That's how I'd put that. Put your time maybe in front of there. Or as collections manager, work independently to create blah, blah, blah. Does that make sense for everybody? Okay. And so that's how I would do. What is that done now? Hopefully it's been recording. Okay. And again, but make sure that whatever you're doing, if you see a term like TMS, you don't know what it is, look it up. Okay. For them, it's going to be their management system they got there. Here we call it Past Perfect. Smithsonian, the larger one, we called it SOVA. They got all these different names for pretty much what's a data access management system. Okay. And that's just basically a system that manages all your artifacts. Once we get done with this work here we're doing here, how does that manage? Well, you put all this stuff in the database, and it tells you where the boxes are, how many boxes are in the collection, what collections are involved. And so that's all it is. And again, so research people, places, organizations, and you put for the Piedmont Historical Society or as collection manager, as volunteer historian, researched people, places, blah, 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 blah. Or so many years researching this here volunteer. Does that make sense, everybody? So that's how you want to do that. Again, though, make sure you keep it at 2 pages. That is a new thing I just saw that came up this month. That's a requirement. I know for most of us here, well, that sounds normal. If you've ever been applying on here, that was never normal. You could go, like say, 10, 15, 20 pages, your resume would be, by the time you put in what you filled in as many blanks as possible, okay? All right, let me get out of this one here and see what else is out there. Okay, so again, this one is probably the same job. They said they posted twice. Here's one, supervisor and museum specialist, GS13, and this is in Landover, Maryland. That's still the Washington, D.C. area. There's a bunch of museums there. Again, when you're applying for a lot of these jobs here, a lot of these jobs are going to be in Washington, D.C. area. They're going to be in the New York City area, Los Angeles, Chicago, stuff like that, bigger city. Most of the federal departments are. This does not have state jobs in there, just federal. You'd have to look at the state boards and find their equivalent of it to see what they have out there. All right. Another one here is, I looked at this one here because I put in the term, what I think I put, history. So the other thing too is that history is a quirky term to use to search jobs. Do it as a last resort, still check it. The search terms I would use would be like historian, archivist, archives, museum specialist. Use public history or public historian. Records manager. What we're doing is records management. Now, all these federal organizations have a records manager. It is not the most exciting thing because it could be just payroll records, and you're managing and storing those. And nowadays, most is going to be digital work. Do you know how to work with digital files and store digital files? But if you're looking for a job out there, and I can't find one in museums right now, but let me get a job until I can find my dream job. This is an area you can look at, records manager, okay? And a lot of federal agencies, or all federal agencies, as far as I know, they all have records managers now. And most of it is in digital work. But when you use the word history, the problem is any job out there, I did it and it did pretty good right there, but any job that says, we're gonna do a background check of your criminal history, it's gonna pull up everyone that mentions that statement. Okay, so history is kind of a tough one to use. I use it sometimes, but as you get down here, here's one here in archaeology in Bangor, Washington. Again, museum specialists, they go down there. Then you start getting inventory management specialists. That's when they want someone to run their supply, ordering and keeping track of supply and logistics. Then it goes into police officer, again, because you've got history, background history. Use history for your term. Engineering, police officer. But go through these here, because every once in a while, even though they're starting to get away from the museum, one might pop into the bottom. For some reason, it might shuffle wrong. So check them all out, and you'll go through, and they got so many different pages here. Let me see what else got here. Yeah, this one is, like I say, the historian job there. Another one I put in here, let me go over here. Okay, so I'm going to go back to search results. And so another, like say, is archivist. And so put that in there. And so, so there's not showing an archivist right now. There was one last week, but it's not showing in there now. Let's see, try public. Okay. And so student volunteer, Department of Treasury. They have a lot of volunteers, historian out there, government information specialist. Now, with the Smithsonian, another thing also is that in the world of museums, now a lot of jobs are changing through grants and stuff like that. And so like you all are on a grant for an internship. The Smithsonian does grants. So of all their curatorial staff, which is all your museum specialists, your archivists, your curators and all that, it's about 1/3 is temporary, 1/3 is contract, 1/3 is permanent employee. And so a lot of temporary and contract their jobs is through a grant. Okay, and so you'll see those there. So a lot of times these jobs may show that it's a temporary job, and they'll have a temporary for the next 3 years, or for like the grant that's paying for your internship, the 3-year grant. And so for that, so you know you got a job for 3 years. Now a lot of times those grants get renewed. A lot of times they don't. So that's something to keep in mind when you apply for a job. You know, is this a temporary or is it a permanent job? Let me see some here. Go back up here to see if I see that Smithsonian job again, the historian one. All right, give me 1 second here. All right. And I'm going to see, I just want to see if it says, yeah. Okay, so see right here where it says permanent full-time? It could say permanent part-time. It could say temporary full-time or temporary part-time. That's something to keep in mind. Because again, for some of y'all, I got a family, I got this, or I got that. It's a 1-year job that's temporary over in Washington State. Do I want to get up, move my whole family for a 1-year job? You know, or is it a 1-year job, that temporary job that is part-time? Well, it's part-time work. I can't pay my bills, or that's perfect for me because it allows me to be a student there and I can work part-time. So who knows? But pay attention to those there because those come up with a lot. And then sometimes they may even say contract, and then it'll be a contract work. Now the difference with contract work with the federal government is that pretty much if you're a full-time government GS employee, you have all the benefits and medical and all their stuff. But the contract, a lot of times those jobs, usually those jobs don't come with anything. So you get a pay, but everything else is on your own. Okay, so be aware of that. Any questions on that? Is this helpful at all? Okay, all right. So like I say, look through those jobs, check them out. get a feel for them. Like say, and then start, and I would look for them now because sometimes I'll tell you what the qualifications are, and you may be able while you're a student, oh man, let me make sure. They're all pretty much generally asking for this. So maybe take a class in that, or maybe volunteer at a local museum, or let me find out. I know someone who knows how to run Past Perfect, and maybe I come over and volunteer and have someone show me how to work that program and how it works. So at least I can say I know how that works. Past Perfect actually was a help. Partially would help me get with the Smithsonian. It's a data management system for all your archival collections. So I actually worked that, and they're like, "Hey, do you know we have a DAM system?" I didn't know what DAMS was. So I looked at on their resume. So I looked up DAMS. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, that's Past Perfect. Yes, I know how to run that. And so that's what I did. But you see a lot of terminology, look it up, but get a feel for that. If this is what you want to go into, history and stuff, most of your big jobs are here on USA Jobs. Okay, that's why I wanted to tell you about that. All right. Any questions?
Past perfect and damn are like the same thing.
They're the same thing. Yes, yes. Yes, it is. And so it's just DAMS is the overarching description of what what those various systems are. The Smithsonian has its own system, and they developed in-house. Past Perfect is a management system that it's built for small museums, small independent museums like this one here, and it works really good. So if you get a feel for that, that one is a really good. Gives you a lot of experience in what's expected. It may, when you go through, the keystrokes may be a little bit different, or the field areas may be a little bit different, but you'll have similar field areas. And so it's, yeah, if you can do that, you can do it in the Smithsonian or somewhere like that. Okay. All right. That's all I have. Okay. I'll turn this off there. Hopefully record.
You had a template for